Hello dear students, a very warm welcome to another live session for the Operation NEET 650 Plus. And I am Snehal, your zoology faculty at Aakash. And in today's lecture, we are going to discuss a topic of zoology, and that is blood corpuscles. So dear students, the topic in itself seems very simple with just fancy words, which is the corpuscle here, which simply means cells. So basically we are going to talk about our blood cells. So before beginning the topic, let us quickly talk about this topic has been taken from the topic body fluid and circulation. Now, when we talk of the chapter body fluid and circulation in respect to the NEET exam, then dear students, it is important that you know that every year there are 2 to 3 questions from this particular topic. And these 2 to 3 questions can be of medium level, difficult level as well as easy level. So it is very important that while preparing for the exam, you take in consideration this chapter body fluid and circulation, and particularly when we talk about the topic the blood cells, then we have seen a trend that from this particular topic we have questions which are either towards the easier side or towards the medium side. It is never a difficult question, which simply means that everything is taken from the NCERT itself. Alright? So without much ado, let us begin with our discussion. I can see students have also joined, so let us begin our class. So सबसे पहले हम यहाँ पे बात करेंगे कि ब्लड की ज़रूरत है ही क्यों. So dear students, we know that all of us are made up of many cells, है ना. हमारी बॉडी किसकी बनी है? सेल्स की ही बनी है. Alright? And we know that each and every cell is a living body which is undergoing several metabolisms to keep us alive. Alright? So ऐसा तो नहीं है कि ये जो सेल मेरे स्टमक में है ये बाहर मेरी स्किन पे आ जाएगा और जो मेटाबॉलिज्म से यहाँ पे वेस्ट प्रोड्यूस हुए हैं या फिर मेटाबॉलिज्म के लिए इन्हें जो न्यूट्रिएंट्स चाहिए वो इनके पास इनको खुद चल के लेना पड़े स्किन से, ऐसा तो नहीं पॉसिबल है फॉर एवरी सेल इन आवर बॉडी. So here comes the role of the circulatory pathways or the circulatory system which has developed over the course of evolution in different organisms. So as we will discuss, we will figure out कि जैसे जैसे complexity बढ़ी है with the course of evolution in animals, वैसे वैसे the circulatory system or the pathways became more specialized. Alright? So basically, as explained, सारा खेल सर्कुलेटरी पाथवे का बस इतना है कि उसे चीज़ें एक जगह से दूसरी जगह पहुंचानी है. Alright? And in this, the fluid which is being circulated is blood in higher organisms like us. And we will also see that in lower organisms like sponges and coelenterate, it is water that is being circulated throughout their body for this exchange of nutrient gases or for excretion of waste. So we have water also in lower organisms. Again, if we talk in precision about the different types of circulatory pathways, we can describe two types of circulatory pathways, which are the open circulatory system and the closed circulatory system. A very good morning to everyone joined. So here we have seen that we have two types of circulatory system, which is the open circulatory system and the closed circulatory system. So in the open circulatory system, what happens is that our heart, not our heart, the heart of the lower organism will pump the fluid which has to be circulated in a cavity which is there in the body, which is also known as the hemocoel. So basically the fluid which is hemolymph in organisms like insects, we have hemolymph which gets circulated in the body cavity, which is the hemocoel, and all the tissues and cells and organs are bathed in this hemolymph which is present in the hemocoel or the cavity. All right. And if we talk about the closed circulatory system, what happens is that the heart pumps the fluid, which is blood, into specialized blood vessels, which are the veins, arteries and the capillaries, and the exchange of the nutrients or whatever substance it is, it takes place via the capillaries. So this is one of the basic differences between the open circulatory system and the closed circulatory system, and that is कि capillaries or vessels, blood vessels of varying diameters is not present in the open circulatory system, whereas the same will be present in closed circulatory system. All right. So this was the basic difference, and we discussed this part only to realize the importance of blood in our body. So blood is basically that connecting component which is helping us exchange substances from one place to another, apart from facilitating other functions. All right. I can see one of the students has asked that is blood the main circulating fluid in body of complex animals like humans? So yes, the answer is that blood is the main circulating fluid in the complex animals like humans. All right. So now we will quickly see what is there in the NCERT, because at the end it is NCERT which holds the most importance. So our NCERT states that simple organisms like sponges and ciliates circulate water from their surrounding through their body cavities to facilitate the cells to exchange these substances. So what we discussed so far is written in a simple line in the introduction part of this chapter, body fluid and circulation, and students often tend to miss out this section, which is not good, because we should be familiar with each and every line which is there in the NCERT. All right. So we can see that water is used as the main circulating fluid in organisms like sponges and ciliates, whereas more complex organisms use special fluids within their bodies to transport such material, and that fluid is blood, about which we are going to talk. So blood is the most commonly used body fluid by most of the higher organisms, including humans, for this purpose. All right. So this sums up whatever we have discussed so far. So now moving to one question very quickly, so that you realize the importance of every line which is given in the NCERT. So our question here states, which of the following animals circulate water from their surroundings through their body cavities? So dear students, here we are talking about water to facilitate the cells to exchange nutrients and waste products. And in the options given, we can clearly see that we read that it is the sponges and the ciliates which use water as the main circulating fluid. And in the options, we can see we have our fourth option, which is the ciliates. So the answer here will be option number 4. All right, moving on to our topic, blood. So blood, dear students, is a tissue and we have studied in greater details what are the different types of tissues which are present in our body. So blood is one of the connective tissues and it is the specialized connective tissue. A very simpler way of always remembering that it is a connective tissue, because we discussed already how blood is able to connect one part of the body to the other by helping in exchange of substances. So we can very clearly remember from this that it is a connective tissue, and under the category of connective tissues we have different categories, that like the dense regular connective tissue, dense irregular connective tissue, but blood is a type of specialized connective tissue, and to be more specific, blood is a fluid connective tissue. We have seen in general how does the blood look like. It is red in color, and why it is like that we will discuss that in our upcoming slides. And the very important features that you need to remember about blood is that it lacks fibers in its matrix, or we can say that it lacks structural proteins in its matrix. So it lacks fibers, and that is the very reason it is said to be a fluid connective tissue, because the ground substance of blood has a fluid nature, fluid in nature. So it lacks fibers and structural proteins like the collagen and elastin. So we took up these points here because when we have discussed animal tissue at greater depth, we have come across these points. All right. So blood is exactly made up of which substances? To figure out that, what did scientists do is they try to study the component of blood, and for that what they did was a very simple experiment where they took a tube filled with blood and they performed a technique which is known as the centrifugation, which means that the fluid was made to rotate at a higher speed using a centrifuge. And you must have studied at greater depth about this technique in your sessions in botany. All right, so basically what they did was they performed centrifugation on blood, and after that what they saw was they got 3 layers, as you can see on your screen, that you have a tube and they got 3 layers, number 1, number 2 and number 3. Alright, so the first layer that you see seems like a straw colored substance, yellow pale color substance. So basically this substance was plasma. So this substance that you see at the upper portion of the tube was plasma. In between you see a buffy white coat, and that was WBCs and platelets. And towards the lower side of the tube you see a red colored layer, and that was the RBCs. So here, just by looking at the layer, you can very well make out that there are different components of blood and they all have very different properties. That is why first of all they separated out in 3 different layers, and all 3 of them have characteristics, color as well. Alright, so here we can see that the blood, the component of bloods includes the plasma, the WBCs and the platelets and the RBCs. So if we categorize it properly, we can say that blood is made up of the plasma and the formed elements, which include the WBCs, the platelets and the RBCs, and the percentage of plasma in the blood accounts to about 55%. So we can say that 55% of blood is plasma, whereas the rest remaining portion is composed of the formed elements. So the remaining formed components is made up of formed elements, which is 45%. Alright, so let us quickly now go through what our NCERT says so that we can relate it better, whatever we have discussed so far. So we can see that our NCERT defines blood also in this way, that blood is a specialized connective tissue consisting of a fluid matrix, plasma and formed elements. The plasma was around 55% and the formed elements constituted about 45%. Alright. And further, the definition of plasma is given to be: plasma is a straw colored viscous fluid constituting nearly 55% of the blood. I can see Mubarak Ansari has commented viscous fluid. You are very correctly stating, Mubarak Ansari, that plasma is indeed a viscous fluid, and this is how you should be very vigilant about the words that have been given in the NCERT to explain any given substance. So for like plasma, the NCERT uses the word viscous fluid, straw colored, and constitutes about 50%. Very good, Mubarak Ansari. Alright. Further, the NCERT states that erythrocytes, leucocytes and platelets are collectively called the formed elements. Leucocytes here are the WBCs. Alright. So these are the basic information which are given in the NCERT, and we have discussed these already. Okay, alright. So we move on to our detailed discussion in respect to the constituents of plasma. So plasma is a yellow colored viscous fluid. We already saw yellow colored. Viscous fluid which comprises 55% of the blood. And further, if we go into details, we can see that plasma is made up of 90 to 92% of water, and the rest remaining portion is constituted by the proteins. So हमारे blood में जो भी protein present है, that will be present in the plasma. I can see students are asking what does viscous fluid mean. So dear student, viscous fluid simply means a thick fluid. So if we compare the RBCs and the mixture which was obtained for RBCs, WBCs and the plasma was the most viscous, which means which was more thicker. Alright? Okay, alright. Now these components are present in the plasma. So what are the roles of these components? Obviously अगर कुछ present है तो उसका role है. So first of all, 90 to 92% of water which is present in the plasma holds a great significance, because in our body, water acts as a solvent. So in our body, water acts as a solvent, which simply means कि body में अगर कोई भी reaction होनी है, anyway, even if you are performing any reaction, be it in laboratory or even if you are making anything at home, you must have noticed कि presence of water is important to carry out any given reaction or to dissolve anything. Alright. Similarly, for different metabolic reactions that are continuously occurring in our body requires water. So basically, water acts as a solvent where every reaction in our body is taking place, and obviously पानी present है तो उसमें कुछ dissolved substances भी होंगे. So we can see on our screen, we have the list here which states water, and water acts as the solvent. We can see that water acts as the solvent जहाँ पे reactions are carried out. And rest substances which are present in the water in the dissolved state are the ions, which are the blood electrolytes. These electrolytes are the sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, chloride and the bicarbonate. And presence of all these ions help in maintaining the osmotic balance in our body. It helps in maintaining a constant pH, and that is why we also say that blood acts as the buffer which is present in our body. Blood acts as a buffer and maintains the homeostasis of all the fluids present in our body. Whenever you are carrying out any experiment, अगर आप lab में कभी जाओगे, whenever you are doing any experiment, there is always a buffer that we take, and a buffer has a constant pH, so that आसपास की कोई भी चीज़ affect ना हो, एक constant environment maintain रहे. So that function here in our body is performed by blood. And let me know what is the pH of blood that you have studied in the comment section. I am waiting for the answers. Please under edit, give me the answer. What is the pH of the blood? Alright, I can see students are very actively engaging in the comment section. And Sanshumani, how much water is there? So we have discussed that 90 to 92% of water is present in the plasma. Alright. Okay, so this was about the component of water which is present in the plasma. Moving on to the proteins that are present in the plasma. So in the plasma, the proteins that are present are the albumins. These are the albumins. Then we have the globulins, and then we have the fibrinogens. So here we are talking about the protein part, which is 6 to 8%, and we have 3 major proteins which are present in the blood plasma, which is the fibrinogens, the albumins, and the globulins. I can see students have answered that the pH of the blood is around 7.4, 7.45, 7, and a very good response by all of you. You have given the right answer. The pH of the blood is towards the basic side, and good work all of you. All right, it means that you are actively engaged in the session because you have answered it correctly. All right, so when we talk about albumins, we say that the albumins are the smallest protein which are present in the plasma. These are the smallest protein which are present in the plasma. तभी एक्सक्रीशन में हम पढ़ते हैं अल्ट्रा फिल्ट्रेशन का प्रोसेस, इफ़ यू रिमेंबर, एंड इफ़ वी से कि अगर एल्ब्यूमिन यूरिन में आने लगा, इसका मतलब ये होता है कि देयर इज़ समथिंग रॉन्ग इन योर फिजियोलॉजी, बिकॉज एल्ब्यूमिन इज सच अ स्मॉल प्रोटीन दैट इट शुड नॉट pass out in the urine. It gets filtered out during the process of ultrafiltration, which is performed during urine formation. All right, so this is the smallest protein, and this helps in maintaining the osmotic balance of the fluid present in our body. For example, osmotic balance ये कैसे maintain करता है? Because of the presence of albumins, there will be tendency कि water जो है वो इसके तरफ खींची जाए. जो भी water body में आ रहा है वो blood में आए. It happens due to albumins. अगर albumin का नंबर कम हो जाएगा हमारे blood plasma में, तो जो भी water है it will not get transferred in the blood, and वो water हमारे body के tissues में accumulate होना शुरू हो जाएगा, and that leads to swelling in our body. So in many conditions you will feel, many condition as in जहाँ पे liver damaged है या kidney में problem है, there are painless swelling which is also known as oedema in our body, because उस केस में albumin का concentration हमारे blood में बहुत कम हो गया है, and that is why our tissues have started retaining more water. All right, so this helps in osmotic balance, which is very important. Moving to our second protein, which is the globulins. So presence of globulins is again holds a great importance, because globulins help us in fighting infectious diseases. For instance, if you don't remember, हमने अपने chapters में human health and disease में we have studied about the antibodies. All right, so antibodies are basically glycoproteins, and they belong to the family of these globulin proteins. So basically we have 3 types of globulins, which is the alpha globulin, gamma globulin, beta globulin, and then we have the gamma globulin. So the antibodies that we study, they are the gamma globulins. These are the antibodies belong to the family of gamma globulins, whereas the alpha and beta globulins, they perform transportation. Basically कुछ चीज़ें बॉडी में ऐसी होती हैं जिनको एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाने के लिए they require a transporter. So and the plasma, which is the protein which is present in our plasma, like globulins, help in such transportation. They will attach to these alpha and beta globulins, and then they will be transported to different parts in our body. So basically they act as a transporter protein. All right. Okay. All right. I can see one of the students are asking that please repeat the albumin explanation. So albumin is the smallest protein, and it acts and it helps in maintaining the osmotic balance in our blood, क्योंकि albumin ज़्यादा होना चाहिए so that water की retention tissues में ना होके blood में हो. अगर albumin कम होगा तो more water will be retained in the tissues, and that will lead to swelling in our body. All right. Okay. All right. So we discussed these two proteins. Moving on to our third protein, which is the fibrinogen. So fibrinogens are basically proteins which are involved in blood clotting. So we can say that fibrinogen is an inactive protein which is present in our plasma, which will get activated if there has to be clotting of blood that needs to be performed. All right. So these three are the basic proteins which are present in the blood plasma, but all of them hold a great significance, and we should remember the functions of each one of them, because in exam basic questions based on these proteins are often asked, and they are very simple and easy questions, and we should not miss out on them. One more important thing that we need to remember is that all these proteins are synthesized in the liver. They are synthesized in the liver. Okay. All right. I can see students are commenting that they have understood the topic, so I'm glad to know that. Okay. Let us quickly just see what is there in the NCERT. We'll quickly read it. That 90 to 92% of plasma is water, and proteins contribute 6 to 8% of it. This was very clearly discussed. Fibrinogens, globulins and albumins are the major proteins which are present in the plasma. And then in the detail we can see the functions of these proteins are also given in the NCERT. For instance, fibrinogens are needed for clotting or coagulation of blood. Globulins primarily are involved in defense mechanisms. That we discussed are the gamma globulins, which are our antibodies, and the albumins help in osmotic balance. Plasma also contains small amounts of minerals like sodium, calcium, magnesium, bicarbonate and chloride. We saw this when we talked about the water component. Glucose, amino acids, lipids, etc. are also present in the plasma. So it is important that you remember that such nutrients are also present in the plasma, as they are always in transit in the body, which simply means कि glucose, amino acids and lipids की ज़रूरत body में बहुत जगह पड़ती है. So they are always transported from one place to another, and that is why they keep circulating in the plasma, क्योंकि वहाँ से उसको ले जाना आसान है. All right. Factors for coagulation or clotting of blood are also present in the plasma in an inactive form. That is something very important, and we already talked about it when we talked about the fibrinogens, that the proteins which are involved in clotting of blood are present in an inactive form in the blood plasma. Here you can see a line which is very easily missed out when we read NCERT, that plasma without the clotting factors is called serum. All right. So basically it simply means that when we talk about the components of blood, we can say that serum is plasma minus the clotting factors. All right, this is a very simple way to remember what exactly is serum. सीरम में हम क्लॉटिंग फैक्टर्स को हटा देंगे, प्लाज्मा से क्लॉटिंग फैक्टर को हटा देंगे तो वो सीरम बन जाएगा. ऑलराइट, एंड व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट प्लाज्मा we can say that blood without the formed elements is the plasma. So plasma is blood without the formed elements. All right, so I hope I have been able to make sense so far. Now let us quickly move on to a few questions, because it is always important to solve questions so that you can make out that you have understood the concepts. All right, so the question here states all of the following together contribute almost 6 to 8% of composition of blood plasma except. So here indirectly it means कि 6 to 8% जो कि सिर्फ हमारा प्रोटीन्स होता है, so all of them contribute as protein in the blood plasma except. So it is very simple that our answer here will be water, as water comprises 90 to 92% of the plasma. All right, so answer here will be option number 3, and rest of them are the names of the proteins. All right. Okay, moving on to our next question, which states choose the odd one with respect to plasma proteins. So we can see we have fibrinogens, we discussed already, we have the globulin also, we have the albumin also. So we are left with the last option, which states elastin. And if you remember clearly in the very beginning of the discussion, I discussed that कि matrix of blood में collagen and elastin नहीं होता. कहने का मतलब structural proteins are absent in the matrix of blood. So here the answer will be option number 4. All right, I can see students are giving the correct answer, which means you are able to follow the lecture. Next question here states serum differs from blood in lacking. All right, इसका मतलब सीरम में ऐसा क्या है जो कि डिफरेंट है ब्लड से, इन द सेंस सीरम में वो प्रेजेंट नहीं है. So we can see our answer is right here. It is the clotting factors, which we discussed already, that serum is equivalent to plasma minus the clotting factors. So the answer here will be option number 3. All right. Okay, we have one more question, and it states in response to foreign antigens, the body's defense mechanism produces antibodies which are number 1 modified polysaccharides. So we already saw that antibodies are under the category of gamma globulins, and gamma globulins or globulins are the proteins which were present in the blood plasma. So this helps me make out that पॉलीसैकेराइड तो वो नहीं है, फॉस्फोलिपिड भी वो नहीं है. Now I can see we have 2 options which states globulins in plasma, which should be the right answer obviously, because globulins contained in RBCs तो नहीं होगा. So here the right answer is option number 2. Okay, we have one more question, and it states blood is a liquid connective tissue. That is true, and it transports waste products to various organs for elimination from the body. So we discussed at greater lengths that blood का एक काम ये भी है कि वो body में चीज़ों को एक जगह से उधर ले जाए, and which simply means transportation, and it can be of the waste products or also the nutrients, etc. All right. So here A will be included in the answer. B is given to be blood osmotic pressure influences the water content of cells mainly through interaction of dissolved ions and proteins. So this seems like a very sophisticated and complicated line, but students, we discussed at greater lengths about albumins. So here we are simply talking about द रोल ऑफ एल्ब्यूमिन, क्योंकि हमने पढ़ा कि एल्ब्यूमिन जो है वाटर को अपनी तरफ खींचने में हेल्प करता है. वो वाटर क्यों खींच रहा है? टू मेंटेन द ऑस्मोटिक प्रेशर एंड द बैलेंस. सो बी इज ऑल्सो एब्सोल्युटली ट्रू when we talk about blood. C is given to be several types of blood proteins help protect against diseases in a variety of ways. So here again we are talking about which protein? It is the gamma globulins that we discussed. So C is also correct. So the question further states, choose the option that represents only the correct features, functions of blood. And I can see that students have very wonderfully given the right answer. Very good, Ritik Yadav and Shalini and Mubarak Ansari. The right answer will include A, B and C. Alright. So I can see, I'm very happy to see that students are able to follow. And I will tag this question as a difficult question, because this has very indirect lines and they are very sophisticated lines. So if you are able to solve such questions, then NEET will just be a cakewalk for all of you. Alright. So okay, one question again, और ये question हमारे AIPMT 2015 में आया हुआ है. So पहले हम उसे AIPMT बोलते थे, अब हम उसे NEET बोलते हैं. So the level is still the same, it's just a different namkaran. All right. So which one of the following is correct? So the first equation states that blood is equal to plasma, RBC, WBC, platelets. So it's right. Blood में ये सब होता है. So our answer seems to be the first option itself. But let us quickly see the other options. So here plasma is given to be blood minus lymphocytes. नहीं, plasma cannot be blood minus lymphocytes. Plasma is blood minus formed elements we discussed. Therefore, this is incorrect. Third option is given to be blood plus fibrinogen. Fibrinogen we studied, that is a clotting protein. So here it should be blood minus the clotting factors. Therefore, third is also incorrect. Fourth is given to be lymph, which is equal to plasma. तो lymph में plasma होता है, RBC lymph में नहीं होता, because we know that the color of lymph is again yellow colored, something like that. So RBC नहीं होगा. So this equation also stands incorrect. So our right answer here is option number 1. Alright. So now we move on to our another portion of the blood. Plasma हमने already discuss कर लिया. Now we are moving on to our formed elements, which comprise 45% of the component of the blood. Okay, I can see Niranjan Haldar has given the right answer. You are absolutely correct, Niranjan Haldar, very good. And over the screen you can see a diagram of the various formed elements that are present. And this diagram is very much given in the NCERT, although यहाँ पे कुछ clear नहीं है कि ये न्यूक्लियस का शेप कैसा है क्या नहीं, but this figure is there. And questions are often asked based on this figure in an indirect way. So it is very important that while we read about the formed elements, we focus on the structural details of these formed elements. All right. So the first formed elements that we are going to take up is the RBCs, which is also known as the erythrocyte. So on the screen you can see the shape of the RBC. So RBCs are known as the red blood cells. क्यों? क्योंकि लाल रंग का दिखता है, सीधी सी बात है. अब वो लाल रंग का क्यों दिखता है? That is something we need to discuss. So the shape of RBCs is biconcave. RBCs are biconcave in nature, in shape, sorry. In the figure you can see that how they are, यहाँ से biconcave, यहाँ से एक concave है, यहाँ से concave है, इसलिए हम इसको कहते हैं they are biconcave in shape. And this shape holds significance because when we study the mathematical figures, sphere पढ़ते हैं हम, बाकी जो भी structure पढ़ते हैं, even I don't know the names of all the structures, but as compared to the other geometrical figures, this biconcave shape has the greatest surface area. So biconcave shape provides great or large surface area, and this surface area is important for exchange of gases, or for the transportation of gases, which is the main role of RBCs in our body. RBC का फंक्शन क्या है? ऑक्सीजन या कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड को इधर से उधर लेके जाना, एंड इसीलिए इसकी शेप ऐसी बनाई गई सो दैट इट कैन कैरी द मैक्सिमम नंबर ऑफ मॉलिक्यूल्स. ऑलराइट, I can see students are already answering, and that is very good. So we discussed the shape. Now we'll quickly see the numbers of the RBCs and the number of RBCs. I can see someone has answered. Sai Teja, you are absolutely correct. In a healthy person, the range is between the 5 to 5 million per cubic millimeter of blood. All right. So it is important that we write it is per cubic millimeter of blood. So this is the average value of RBCs which are present in our body. अगर इससे value कम होती है तो that can lead to anemia, which means decreased in the number of red blood cells. So अगर एक स्टैंडर्ड वैल्यू से RBCs कम है, सो वी से दैट द पर्सन इज सफरिंग फ्रॉम एनीमिया, एंड देयर कैन बी वेरियस टाइप्स ऑफ एनीमियाज also, but that is not important when we talk about the NEET exams. We will not discuss that. We just need to know कि अगर RBCs का number कम है, then when one can suffer from anemia. Okay, and if the number of RBCs are more, then it is known as the polycythemia, which means कि RBC का नंबर बढ़ गया. तो RBC का नंबर कब बढ़ेगा? So usually it is observed that when one goes on higher altitudes तो RBC का नंबर ज़्यादा बढ़ जाता है. क्यों? Because higher altitudes like पहाड़ों पे the dissolved oxygen or the oxygen present in the atmosphere is very less. So to compensate for the exchange of gases or the exchange of oxygen, the number of RBCs increases in our body. So you can see that people living in the high altitudes are going, they have red cheeks and all because the number of RBCs increases in their body, and this is known as the polycythemia. All right. Now talking about the features and function, we already discussed. Feature, one of the important features is its shape, which holds the most importance because it is involved in the transportation of gases. Function की हम बात करें, it's the same. It is important कि RBCs हमारे body में adequate amount में present हो so that oxygen delivery is appropriate. अगर RBC का number इधर से उधर होगा, so we will feel difficulty in breathing and it will be a problematic situation for us. So erythrocytes are important. Also, one of the important points here is that the RBCs are the most abundant formed elements. They are the most abundant formed elements. So out of all the formed elements, RBCs are the most abundant. So इस पे भी questions पूछा जाता है कि which formed element is the most abundant, and it is the RBCs also. When we talk about the other features of RBCs, the life cycle of RBCs is of 120 days. Life cycle RBC की or lifespan, not life cycle, lifespan of RBCs is of 120 days. All right, and we say कि after 120 days the RBCs will die out. क्यों die out होता है? Because इनकी जो plasma membrane होती है, they start to undergo changes and due to wear and tear, because ये RBCs blood capillary से इधर से उधर होते रहते हैं, तो इनके plasma surface पे wear and tear आने लगता है. That is why they start to die out, and when they die out, they die in the spleen, which is also known as the graveyard of the RBCs. So spleen में जो macrophages present हैं, they will eat out the RBCs. All right. Okay. When we talk in more details, we can say that the formation of RBCs takes place in the red bone marrow. So in general, अगर हम blood cell formation की बात करें, so blood cell formation is taking place from the red bone marrow. And is this red bone marrow present in all the bones which are present in our body? You need to answer me in the comment section. कि क्या रेड बोन मैरो हर बोन की रेड बोन मैरो या हर बोन में रेड बोन मैरो होता है? प्लीज आंसर दैट क्वेश्चन इन द कमेंट सेक्शन. सो इट इज द रेड बोन मैरो विच इज इन्वॉल्व इन द प्रोडक्शन ऑफ RBCs और फॉर द all the blood cells. We say that hematopoiesis, which is the blood cell formation, hematopoiesis, which is the blood cell formation, that takes place in the red bone marrow in the adults. That is also something you need to remember very carefully. Young fetal stage में the formation of red blood cells is in the yolk sac. Fetal stage में there is this extra embryonic membrane जहाँ से blood cells का formation होता है, and after that it is the liver. liver के बाद spleen में होता है blood cells का formation, and spleen के बाद it starts to before birth only जो formation of blood cells it starts from the red bone marrow. Okay, so it will move to red bone marrow. I can see one of the students has mentioned a term erythropoiesis. Harshvama, you are absolutely correct. The formation of RBCs is known as the erythropoiesis, but here I have talked about the formation of all the blood cells which is known as hematopoiesis. All right, whereas the formation of only red blood cells will be said as erythropoiesis. Okay. All right, I can see students have said that no. I asked a question कि क्या all bones are involved in the formation of the blood cells? So answer is no. Obviously, in adults, the red bone marrow will be present in the flat bones which are present, and these flat bones are the bones of the sternum and the ribs. वहाँ पे और the shafts of the long bones. So we have the ribs, sternum and the shaft of the long bone जहाँ पे red bone marrow present होता है, and this red bone marrow is involved in the formation of RBCs. You can always get a question that all bones have the bone marrow which can be involved in the process of hematopoiesis or erythropoiesis. So the answer will be a clear cut no, because all bones are not involved in the formation of the blood cells. All right, so very good. All of you have answered it very correctly. Okay, going into the more structural detail, we saw that RBCs carry or they are involved in exchange of gases. तो वो कैसे होता है? It is because of the presence of a protein in the RBCs, or RBCs carry a protein which is known as the hemoglobin molecule. और hemoglobin के बारे में हमने अपने चैप्टर में पढ़ा है बायोमोलिक्यूल, that hemoglobin is a it's a quaternary protein which is composed of two chains, alpha and beta. 4 chain actually is where 2 chains are similar, which is the alpha chain and the beta chain. Even in the figure you can see that they have labeled 2 beta polypeptide chains, and then we have the 2 alpha polypeptide chains. Alright, or each hemoglobin molecule will carry 4 iron molecules or atom we can say. So here we can see कि हमारे पास आयरन है और वो कहाँ प्रेजेंट है, दैट इज प्रेजेंट इन दी नॉन प्रोटीन पार्ट ऑफ दिस प्रोटीन, नॉन प्रोटीन पार्ट ऑफ हीमोग्लोबिन, जिसको हम बायोमोलिक्यूल में एक टर्मिनोलॉजी भी देते हैं. सो यू नीड टू लेट मी नो इन द कमेंट सेक्शन व्हाट इज द नॉन प्रोटीन पार्ट ऑफ दिस प्रोटीन इज कॉल्ड. So heme is present as the non-protein part of the hemoglobin, and we have 4 molecules of heme here, we can see in the figure also, and at the center of each heme molecule we have an iron. Alright, or oxygen gets captured by this iron itself, a molecule of oxygen. So अगर एक hemoglobin में में 4 हीम के एटम्स हैं, 4 हीम मॉलिक्यूल्स है सॉरी, और एक वी कैन सी कि एक हीम कंटेन्स 1 आयरन, इसका मतलब 4 आयरन है हमारे पास, एंड 1 आयरन विल बाइंड टू 1 molecule of oxygen. Alright, so we can say that a maximum a hemoglobin can carry 4 molecules of oxygen. Alright, so this is something very basic and you can be asked in the exam also कि एक hemoglobin का molecule at maximum or in the saturated condition can carry how many molecules of oxygen. So the answer is simple, it will be 4 molecules of oxygen. Alright, and even our NCERT states that a healthy individual has 12 to 16 grams of hemoglobin in every 100 ml of blood. Alright, okay, so this makes sense कि RBC है और वो participate करता है in exchange of gases, and how is it able to participate in that? First of all, it carries a protein which is capable of carrying the oxygen molecule or the molecules of the carbon dioxide and transport it to various parts. Okay, all right. So here we can see a table of the blood grouping. So we will not discuss this topic at greater lengths because it requires another lecture, but here we will quickly just figure out ये blood grouping हुई कैसे. So basically the basis on which blood grouping is done is based on the fact कि हमारी जो RBC है, so RBC के surface पे we have various antigens which are present. RBC का जो surface है उस पे we have antigens which are present, and the presence or absence of these antigens decide the blood grouping in an individual. For example, if antigen A is present on the RBC, the individual will be a blood group individual, क्योंकि obvious बात है कि अगर antigen और A में अगर present है RBC के ऊपर तो वो blood group A individual होगा, और उसके प्लाज्मा में just उसके ऑपोजिट वाली एंटीबॉडी प्रेजेंट होगी, क्योंकि अगर यहाँ पे एंटीबॉडी जो है ए के लिए ही प्रेजेंट होगी तो ये एंटीबॉडी तो खुद ही इस आरबीसी को मार देगी, सो दैट पर्सन विल नॉट बी एबल टू सर्वाइव. सो इट इज ऑलवेज सेड दैट द टाइप ऑफ एंटीजन विच इज प्रेजेंट ऑन द आरबीसी, हमेशा उसके ऑपोजिट में एंटीबॉडीज आर present in the plasma. I can see students are asking ki oxygen as oxygen attaches with which part of the hemoglobin. So oxygen will add to the heme part of the hemoglobin, not the globin part. All right. Okay, Harsh Verma, I hope I have answered your question. And similarly, we have the B blood group, individuals which have antigens on RBCs with B antigens. Similarly, if an individual have A and B antigens, the person will be an AB individual, and if there are no antigens, the person is said to be a O blood group individual. And in corresponding to all the blood groups, we will have the opposite nature of antibodies present in the plasma. Okay, all right. So this detail will be discussed with you in another lecture series which we will have. Okay, so let's quickly solve a few questions, and this question has been taken from the NEET 2017 exam. Okay, so we can see our question states that adult human RBCs are enucleate, which means they lack a nucleus, which is very important. When we study about RBCs, we say that it lacks nucleus because it needs space so that it can transfer the oxygen molecules or the gaseous molecules. So basically it needs space to carry all those molecules, and along with the nucleus it lacks the other organelles as well. इसलिए हम कहते हैं कि RBC में metabolic activity तो होती है लेकिन बहुत कम होती है, and they majorly undergo anaerobic respiration क्योंकि उनके अंदर organelles like mitochondria तो present ही नहीं है. Alright, and all of these adaptations have been made only so that they have more space to carry out the gases for exchange of gases. All right. Okay. So adult human RBCs are enucleate. Which of the following statements is our most appropriate explanation for this feature? Number A, they do not need to reproduce. All right. So RBCs indeed do not reproduce, but this is not the reason why they lack a nucleus. So our A option is incorrect. B is given to be they are somatic cells. So RBCs are indeed a somatic cells because they are not involved in the production of gametes. Therefore, B is still incorrect because सोमैटिक होने के कारण ऐसा नहीं है कि वो ई न्यूक्लिएटेड है, क्योंकि हमारे बॉडी में और भी तो सोमैटिक सेल्स है. आर दे ई न्यूक्लिएटेड? दे आर नॉट ई न्यूक्लिएटेड. ऑलराइट. Okay, C stage, they do not metabolize. So it will be incorrect to say that they do not metabolize. Obviously, they are a living cell and they do show metabolism, but towards the lower side. But this is also not the correct reason why they lack a nucleus. So finally, we have D, which states all the internal space is available for oxygen transport. So this is the absolute reason or the correct reason why they lack the cell organelles, so that they have space available for the transport of gases. So the answer here will be option number 1, which is only D. Okay. All right, I can see students were not able to answer this question. So this question has been taken from the exam NEET 2017, so it is important that you solve the PYQs so that you can solve questions, and I will tag this question as a difficult question. All right. Okay. Moving on to our next question, which states read the following features, and then we need to choose that how many of the above given features are true for mammalian erythrocytes. So first option states formed in the red bone marrow, which is true, plays significant role in allergic reactions. So we cannot say that they play a significant role in allergic reactions. It is the role of the formed elements. Therefore, 2 is incorrect. They are the role of the basophils that we will study. Okay. Third, involved in coagulation of blood. So RBCs are not involved in the coagulation of blood. It is the platelets. So 3 is also incorrect. 4th is given to be devoid of nucleus in mature form, which is absolutely true, as we discussed already. Average lifespan is of 120 days, which is also true, and we have discussed this point as well. So we have only 3 options which are correct, and it is option number 1. Okay. Okay, all right. So we move on to our next question again. The average lifespan of RBCs is 120 days, after which they are destroyed in the spleen. We saw that. And in the options given to us, we can see our third option states 120 and spleen. So our right answer here will be option number 3rd. Okay. Now we quickly move on to our last topic, our leukocytes, which are the white blood cells. So the name itself suggests that they are white blood cells, which means they are colorless, whereas the RBCs were red in color. All right. The shape, we can say that WBCs somehow they move around like a amoeba, or we can say that amoeboidal in nature. We have also studied in our chapter locomotion that some of the elements like macrophages show amoeboid movement. So they have amoeboidal shape, we can say, or they move around in the form or via diapedesis. All right. The number, if we talk about, it ranges around 6,000 to 8,000 per mm cube of blood in a healthy person. All right. And the features and functions, we will discuss about the WBCs by categorizing it properly. So we know that the WBCs are categorized based on the presence of granules in their cytoplasm. So what was done? Staining procedure was performed to figure out that which WBCs are have granules in their cytoplasm and which do not. And on the basis of that, it was discovered that WBCs can be divided into agranulocytes and granulocytes. And the granulocytes are basically cells in which we have the small granules which are present, and this was found upon staining कि staining के बाद अगर granules इसमें दिख रहे हैं, it means that it is a granulocytes, and they were the neutrophils, the eosinophils and the basophils. So to remember the granulocyte, you can simply use a trick which is the Ben. So Ben is a granulocyte, which means basophils, eosinophils and neutrophils. All right. Okay. Then we have the agranulocytes, जिसके stain करने पे हमें कोई granules नहीं दिखेगा. We will just see the nucleus. All right. There will be no granules as such, and they are the agranulocytes, and they are the lymphocytes and the monocytes. All right. So now let us quickly discuss these WBCs by comparing all 5 of them. So we have the neutrophils, the eosinophils, the basophils, the lymphocytes and the monocytes, where first of all the comparison that we take is whether granules are present in their cytoplasm or not. So in neutrophils we have the granules, in eosinophils also we have the granules, in basophils also we have the granules, in lymphocytes and monocytes they are agranulocytes. So presence of granules will not be seen in their cytoplasm upon staining. All right. And to remember it, we use the trick Ben. So Ben is granulocyte. And now coming to the shape of their nucleus, and the shape of the nucleus holds utmost importance because questions are asked on this in एग्जाम ऑलवेज कि शेप एक पर्टिकुलर WBC का कैसा होता है. So it is important that you focus on the shape of the nucleus. All right. I can see that students are answering themselves, which is amazing. So the nucleus of neutrophils has multi-lobes. Even in the diagram we can see that it has multi-lobes. So they are said to be multi-lobed nucleated, or their nucleus do not have a definite shape. So we also say that they are polymorpho nucleoleucocyte. Okay, so they are the PMNLs. All right, and their nucleus is multi-lobed. All right, coming to eosinophils, we can see that eosinophils has a bilobed nucleus. It's just like a headphone that you see. Even in the diagram you can see it's like a headphone. So it has a bilobed nucleus. All right. Also, yes, Mubarak Ansari and Sai Teja, we can call it, no, we cannot call it multinucleated, we can call it multilobed. So Mubarak Ansari, you are right, it is multilobed. Okay. Okay. Then looking at the basophils, we can see that this nucleus of this has somewhat like a S-shaped structure, which means that it is trilobed, or we can also call it S-shaped. So the nucleus of basophils is S-shaped, or they are trilobed. Okay. Moving to lymphocytes, we can see that it has a prominent round only nucleus, so it has a round nucleus. Moving to monocytes, we can see that it has a kidney shaped, or we can also call it bean shaped or horseshoe shaped nucleus. All right, so these are the basic characteristics of the structures of these nucleus of these leukocytes, and it is important that you remember the features. Moving to their percentage, the neutrophils account about 60 to 65% of the total WBCs per mm³ of blood. All right. The eosinophils account about 2 to 3%. The basophils account about 0.5 to 1%. The lymphocytes account about 20 to 25%. And the monocytes account about 6 to 8%. Again, based on the percentage of neutrophils, we have various questions that are always asked. So it is important that you remember the percentages of these different leukocytes. All right. Coming on to their functions and features, the neutrophils, as we can clearly make out from the percentage, are the most abundant formed elements, whereas the leukocytes, sorry, the basophils are the least abundant formed elements, whereas the least abundant formed element with respect to WBCs. When we talk about the total categorization, it is the RBCs which are the most abundant formed element. Here we are talking in respect to the leukocytes कि leukocytes के अंदर कौन से formed element है जो सबसे ज़्यादा है और सबसे कम है, and they are the neutrophils and the basophils. All right. Okay. Then neutrophils are phagocytic in nature, and they are the first one to arrive whenever there is a pathogenic attack. So neutrophils help in the defense mechanism as they are phagocytic in nature. Coming to eosinophils, eosinophils release histaminases, and they participate in allergic reactions. So they participate in allergic reactions, and they are helpful in countering the attack of protozoans, or sorry, parasites. All right. Moving to basophils. Basophils are involved in inflammatory reactions because they secrete serotonin, heparin, and histamine. So basically, histamine is an anticoagulant, we know that. Sorry, heparin is an anticoagulant, we know that, and histamine is a vasodilator. And all these chemicals are released, participate in inflammation. So whenever there is inflammation, it is mediated by basophils. All right. So basophils participate in inflammatory reactions. Moving to lymphocytes, we know we have studied about two types of lymphocytes, which are the B lymphocytes and the T lymphocytes. So basically they are involved in the defense mechanism of the body. Moving to monocytes, monocytes are again phagocytic in nature, and monocytes are found in blood. They are found in blood, but when they move to tissues, they specialize into macrophages, and we have macrophages which are tissue specific. For example, we have the Kupffer cells. Now Kupffer cells are present where? You need to let me know that you will find Kupffer cells at which place. So basically this is the categorization and the differentiation of these lymphocytes. Now let us quickly solve questions so that we can remember it in a better way. All right. So here the question states, in the given chart, choose the option that correctly represents the blanks marked as A, B, C, D and E. So here we can see that the division is given for leukocytes, and we have the granulocytes and the agranulocytes. So we already learned that the granulocytes will be Ben, and here we can already see we have the eosinophils. So A should be neutrophils, B should be basophils, and under agranulocytes we have the monocytes and the lymphocytes, and lymphocytes can be further categorized into B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. All right. So here the correct answer should be A is neutrophil. We can see we have our first option correct. C is given to be T lymphocytes, which is incorrect because C should be monocyte. Therefore, our first option is incorrect. B again is given to be monocyte, which will stand incorrect because monocyte is a agranulocyte. A is given to be neutrophil, C is given to be monocyte, and E is given to be T lymphocyte, as we have figured out. Therefore, the right answer here is option number 3rd. Moving on to our next question, and we can be asked such question in exams as well, where we have to arrange the given number of the formed elements in the correct sequence. So choose a sequence which correctly represents the abundance of formed elements per mm³ of blood in ascending order in a normal adult human. So the maximum number of the formed element that we had is the neutrophils, and the least number is the basophils. All right. So in the first option we can see we have neutrophils, which is followed by lymphocytes. So here itself it stands incorrect because we know neutrophils are 60 to 65%, whereas lymphocytes are 22 to 25%. All right. Second option is given to be basophils. So basophils account for 0.5 to 1%, monocytes account for 6 to 8%, and lymphocytes account to 20 to 25%. Whereas neutrophils account for 60 to 65%. Therefore, our right answer here is option number 2. It's very clear cut. All right. If we talk about the formed elements at the broader range, we can say that the RBCs have the highest number. RBCs have the highest number, followed by the platelets and then the WBCs. all right, and among WBCs, this is the correct characterization or the correct way of arranging it, all right. Moving to yet another question, and it says, I can see the students are answering and they have given the correct answer. Neutrophils and monocytes differ from each other in all of the following aspects except. So we discussed about the basic features of the neutrophils and monocytes. So let us quickly go through the options. So the first option states the shape of their nuclei in the mature form. So we saw that neutrophils they are multi-lobed PMNLs, whereas monocytes had kidney shaped nucleus. So obviously there is a difference in their shape of their nuclei, therefore the first option will get eliminated. Second option states their contribution to total WBC content of blood. So we have already discussed that there is obviously a difference between the contribution made by both of them. So our second option is also incorrect. Third option is given to be their phagocytic nature. So both of them share a phagocytic nature. When we discussed the functions, we saw that both of them show phagocytic nature. Therefore third option is one such aspect where they are not different, whereas the fourth option states their cytoplasm content. So neutrophils we saw are the granulocytes, whereas the monocytes are the agranulocytes, all right. Therefore the fourth option is also incorrect. So the right answer here is option number third. Okay, I can see only one person has given the correct answer. So the right answer here is option number third. Moving on to our next question, and it states proteins contribute X% of the plasma in human blood. The value of X is equal to the percentage of Y among total WBCs. Choose the correct function of Y. So the proteins contribute, we discussed that 6 to 8% of the plasma in human blood. The value of X is equal to the percentage of Y among total WBCs. Now let us quickly go back to our table to figure out that which substance has the value of 6 to 8%, and we can see that under monocytes we have seen that the value of monocyte is 6 to 8%. So here the Y that we are talking about is the monocytes. All right. So here Y means monocytes. So now we need to choose the correct option or the correct function with respect to the monocytes. Okay. So the first option states secrete histamine, serotonin and heparin. So we saw that the function of or these substances are secreted by the basophils, not monocytes. Therefore our first option is incorrect. Moving to our second option, which states mainly resist infections and are also associated with allergic reaction. So here this function of resistant towards infections and the allergic reactions is the function of the eosinophils. This is the function of the eosinophils. We discussed that when we discussed the table. Therefore our second option is also incorrect. Third option states phagocytic cells with bean-shaped nucleus destroy foreign organisms entering the body. So we discussed that the nature of monocyte is that they are phagocytic nature and they indeed have a bean-shaped nucleus. Therefore the third option is the answer that we are looking for in this question. If you read the last option, ये तो पहले ही गलत है क्योंकि it is starting with granulocytes and we know that monocytes are agranulocytes. Therefore our fourth option will get eliminated. So our right answer here is option number third. All right. Again we have a question. It states largest leukocytes are. So the largest nucleocytes are the monocytes. That's a fact-based question. Amongst all the leukocytes, monocytes are said to be the largest. All right. Okay, we have another question and this has been asked in the NEET exam and it states which of the following statements are correct. Basophils are most abundant cells of the total WBCs. This is incorrect. We saw neutrophils are the most abundant cells of the total WBCs. Basophils secrete histamine, serotonin and heparin, which is absolutely true. Basophils are involved in inflammatory response, which is again true. Basophils have kidney-shaped nucleus. That is incorrect because we saw that it has S-shaped or tri-lobed nucleus. Therefore, D is also incorrect. Basophils are agranulocytes, which is incorrect because basophils are granulocytes. Okay, so the right answer here will include only B and C, and this is given in the second option. Okay, so the last formed element of the day here that we have is the platelets or the thrombocytes. So we know that platelets are one of the important factors because they help in clotting of blood, and their number ranges from around 1.5 lakhs per cubic millimeter of blood to 3.5 lakhs, all right, of blood. And the major function is the blood clotting, to participate in blood clotting, all right. Platelets are not exactly cells, they are said to be the cell fragments. They are cell fragments and they are derived from the special cells which are present in the red bone marrow, and they are known as the megakaryocytes. So basically होता क्या है कि megakaryocyte is a cell and इसमें fragmentation होती है. They get broken down into smaller fragments and they are known as the cell fragments, which is also known as the platelets or the thrombocytes. So that is the only information that you need to read about the platelets, that they are involved in clotting. They secrete factors which are involved in blood clotting and they are very important. अगर platelets का number हमारी body में कम हो जाएगा, then the person will suffer from clotting disorders, क्योंकि उसके बाद platelets ही नहीं है तो there will be no blood clotting. The factors which are released by platelets are involved in blood clotting. So अगर platelet कम है तो वो factors भी present नहीं होंगे. So in all, the person will suffer from clotting disorders, and their number ranges from 1.5 lakh to 3.5 lakh. All right, so this is the basic about the platelets that you need to know. Okay. Okay. All right. So we quickly see a question which has been asked in the NEET 2016, and it states, name the blood whose reduction in number can cause clotting disorders leading to excess loss of fluid from the body. So here we are basically talking about the thrombocytes, which is the other name of the platelets. So the right answer here will be thrombocytes. Here erythrocytes cannot be the answer. I can see one of the students are getting confused. All right. Here Mubarak Ansari is asking कि question में ये पूछा था तो वहाँ accept कैसे answer होगा. So here dear students, here they are asking कि न्यूट्रोफिल और मोनोसाइट डिफरेंट है एक दूसरे से हर उस एस्पेक्ट में एक्सेप्ट, मतलब सारे एस्पेक्ट में दे आर डिफरेंट एक्सेप्ट फॉर वन, एंड दैट वन फैक्टर और एस्पेक्ट इज दैट बोथ ऑफ देम आर फैगोसाइटिक इन नेचर. बाकी अगर आप सारे ऑप्शंस को रीड करोगे तो दोनों सारे इन फीचर्स में देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन द न्यूट्रोफिल्स एंड द मोनोसाइट्स दैट आई हैव ऑलरेडी एक्सप्लेन. आई होप मुबारक अंसारी दिस इज़ क्लियर टू यू नाउ. दोनों की शेप में फ़र्क होता है, दोनों के कंट्रीब्यूशन में फ़र्क होता है, दोनों के साइटोप्लाज्मिक कंटेंट में फ़र्क होता है, बट दे आर बोथ फैगोसाइटिक इन नेचर. दैट इज़ वाई द आंसर गिवन इज सी. ऑलराइट, मुबारक अंसारी. So if you just want to sum up and see how does exactly blood looks like under a microscope, you can see here that we have the white blood cells, दिख भी रहा है white white सा. We have the platelets which are like the cell fragments present. They are not true cells. Alright, and then we have the red blood cell which is red in color. If you zoom it, this is under
This is with a different microscope and this is again with a different microscope, and here you can very well see that we have the white blood cells जहाँ पे neutrophil को दिखाया गया है. We have the blood plasma, we have the RBCs which look like a disc, then we have small platelets here and there. You can see the platelets, and here in the figure itself you can see कि neutrophil का जो nucleus है, it has multi-lobes. That is why the person has marked this as a neutrophil, whereas the white blood cell का nucleus can be very distinctly seen as a kidney shaped nucleus which belongs to monocytes. So here it is a monocyte. Alright students, so this marks the end of the discussion. I hope you will find this lecture useful. Hope to see you soon again. Thank you and all the best.